Thank you for joining us again as we continue our discussion about municipal bond credit stresses, bankruptcies, and worse. And this part will deal with Detroit, lessons learned and to be learned from a distressed city. We are pleased to be able to ask Jim Spiotto of Chapman Strategic Advisors about his insights into lessons that can be learned from Detroit's recent bankruptcy proceedings. Jim, looking back, is there anything that Detroit could have done differently that might have prevented the city's bankruptcy filing?
Well, obviously, given the long history of Detroit, Paul, having the problems they've had, and the fact that they and others have noticed that over decades, people and businesses moved out. The early detection and addressing of those problems is a lesson that I think every other municipality has learned from. It's very interesting, since Detroit filed over a year ago in July of 2013, no city, town, village, or county has filed a Chapter 9. I think that people are recognizing that we have to address these problems as soon as we can and as effectively as we can, and that if we don't, the pain, the uncertainty, the cost, the expense doesn't get better, it only gets worse. And so with all that, I think people are looking for different mechanisms. I think they're going back. I mean, one of the things that I think some people were hoping for Detroit was more of a municipal assistance corp like New York City had, where you put in a organizational structure above it with financial support to help refinance its debt, to help it borrow money at a low cost and help it reinvest in the city and grow its business. That was not chosen for a myriad of reasons decided by the state government. That was the vehicle of choice by any U.S. major city of size, especially the largest city of any state, because up till Detroit, whether it's New York City or Cleveland in '78 or Philadelphia in 1991 or any other city that was the largest city in the state, they chose to work with the state and refinance their debt rather than go into Chapter 9. And so I think that was a lesson learned. And I think from a creditor standpoint and even from a public worker standpoint, I think they recognized that there is no good to anyone in a Chapter 9. It's a process. It's not a solution. The systemic problem of reinvesting in Detroit is still there. And when they come out of their bankruptcy, as hopefully they will, with a confirmed plan, they still have to do that recovery plan to reinvest in Detroit. And that doesn't take months, doesn't take a year. It takes many years, if not decades. That which takes so long to get into takes about the same time to go back. And so therefore, they have to look to 10, 15, 20 years from now as the fulfillment of that total recovery.
Well, when you compare some of these other major cities that you've referred to, Philadelphia, New York, you named another one.
Detroit,
Besides Detroit.
Cleveland.
Cleveland, thank you. When you think about their fundamental economics versus Detroit, isn't there a big difference? Isn't Detroit much worse in terms of its economic fundamentals?
Well, Detroit had some unique issues stemming to its location, its concentration in certain manufacturing areas. But take Pittsburgh, which was, in one sense, it lost the same amount of population as Detroit did between 1950 and 2000. But in the 1990s, they decided what could they do to help reinvest in Pittsburgh, whether it was high tech and med tech. And they expanded through Apple and Google and healthcare, in areas that created new jobs. They realized they were big in steel and they were big in manufacturing, but those days weren't the future. The future was reinventing the city and reinvesting in it. So I think it can be done. And they did that through an Act 47 type procedure where the city comes up with their recovery plan. They work with their state. They get some additional revenue through a commuter tax that comes to them, and they work through it till they to hopefully accomplish their goal. And Pittsburgh has moved up because of that.
So you're saying that Detroit could have done some things to deal with its fundamental economic malaise if it had moved fast enough. It could have done some things that would have helped the underlying economics.
Yes, yes, but hindsight's always 20/20. And I think, unfortunately, for Detroit, everyone else is learning from that.
Good. And again, for those of you that would like to hear more of Jim Spiotto's articulate comments on municipal credit analysis and stresses, the next part will follow.